Snackable, a few-minute podcast from Self-Access Center and VR Lab, Campus YMX Ecatepec. Have you ever wondered how many times you open the fridge a day, hoping to find something tasty and quick to eat? Picture how your English will be if you ate it in bites. Keep it simple, keep it short, keep it. Snackable, a place where broken English is welcome. So, hello community, YMX Ecatepec, how's it going? Welcome to another season of Snackable. This is season number 5. Today we are starting this season with such a great guest, guys. I was reading his resume, and I think this guy is brilliant. So today, guys, we have Ray Seron. He's a linguist, educator, researcher, and a specialist in English for academic purposes. He holds a master's degree in applied linguistics with a specialization in TESOL. TESOL stands for Teaching English to Speakers of Another Languages. Also, he has a bachelor degree in business administration. In addition, I was reading that he started his doctor degree in philosophy at University Anáhuac. Yes, Anáhuac University. In addition, he speaks English, Spanish, Portuguese, and French. And he has an intermediate level in Turkish, and I think that he's a beginner learner of Japanese, Korean, Swedish, and Arabic. So, guys, this guy is brilliant, and I think we are about to know more about him. Also, guys, he has served as program coordinator, teacher, trainer, and expert in technology for institutions such as Tecnológico de Monterrey, University of Central Florida, Korea University, and National Central University in Taiwan. Also, he has been a coordinator of language programs in the USA, in Taiwan, South Korea, Turkey, Germany. And I think that's it. I mean, I am impressed by your resume, by your
Thank you.
experience as a everything. I mean, welcome, Ray. Welcome to this first episode of season number 5 here at Snackable. Thank you
so
for
much for having
accepting
me.
the invitation. No, thank you. Ray, I think it will be very impressive to know about you, about your career, because as I have mentioned, you are a coordinator, you are an educator, you are a trainer, you have I guess that you have trained teachers as well as students. So I don't know, I am impressed. So I would like to start, Ray, of course, by thanking you for accepting the invitation and for sharing with you your knowledge and your experience about this field of this linguistic field. All right, but I would like to start with this question. You have a bachelor degree in business administration, but your master's degree is in applied linguistics. So when did you realize that language was going to be more than a subject?
Okay, so basically, like you mentioned, right, for my bachelor's degree in business administration, I had to do an exchange program to a different country. I was studying in the US at the time, and the requirement was to do one exchange program, right, somewhere else besides the US. So they sent me to Sweden. That's why I know some Swedish, right? And part of the program was learning basic Swedish, right? And that's when I realized that, of course, I liked business administration, right? But my passion was learning foreign languages, and coming across a different language like Swedish, right, that I had never seen before was enchanting. You know, like the way it sounded, learning new vocabulary, and basically starting from scratch. It was like learning from even basic stuff like the numbers and going to class. So that was more fun than going to business management, marketing class, or even production management, which I hated. And it was more fun, right, to be engaged in learning about the culture, the language itself, and also being able to communicate in that foreign language. So that trip changed my life. And then I went back home and I decided to add linguistics to my major, right? In the US, you can do that. You can, if you want to do a double major, right? Dual major at the same time. and it just means that you got to take extra classes, and that's what I did. And that's how I yeah, became enchanted, or fascinated by learning foreign languages too.
Okay, so you are a natural learner. That is, I think that is such a skill, because most of the times, I think that, I mean, I have to mention this. You are Mexican, right?
Yeah, yeah, I was born in Mexico City. Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah. So many Mexicans, I mean, if we grow with our culture, I mean, you know that we are not self-learners. I mean, so we are so used to having a teacher that is in front of the class and he research and he investigates and he is in charge of our learning. All right. But I
Hmm.
think that you have mentioned something important. And I would like to know, how is it that French, how is it that Portuguese,
Okay.
how is it that you learn those languages? I
So
mean,
basically, once I started doing my linguistics program, right, back in college, they also require you to know a different language besides your native language, which is Spanish, right? And the easiest one was French. So I thought, and I enrolled in classes, and then I realized that like spelling and writing and pronunciation based, it's complex, but I liked it too, right? And I always kind of liked foreign movies, and French movies back in the 70s were like a big thing. I have a lot of friends who make movies, actually movie directors,
okay.
so that was also an influence. And Portuguese also, they offer Portuguese classes. So for me it was like it was easier to go for the Romance languages, right? Because you have a
Yeah.
foundation, and then you can pick it up faster, though. Of course, it comes with different problems, especially for pronunciation, which is the toughest one. Now that you mentioned French, because Portuguese, to some certain degree or extent, it's easier to be mimicked, right, or picked up if you speak Spanish, because of the repertoire for sounds. But French, you gotta do a lot of extra work with the correct or the right pronunciation. So that's pretty much why I became fascinated, because even though they come from the same family, right, the pronunciation is not similar, or is not exactly the same for French. So that's
Yeah.
why I became fascinated by French language and culture too.
That is amazing. Actually, once I give it a try to French,
Hmm.
and I couldn't. To be honest, I couldn't. So my mind was kind of. I mean, I have English. I mean, I am so familiar with English that when I
Hmm.
started learning French, it was like, no, my accent was like, I don't know. I mean, as soon as I started thinking in French, it was something weird because I started thinking in English. So I couldn't even speak Spanish to my
Hmm.
teacher. It was English, and it was like, oh my God. And also what you have mentioned, the accent and the sounds and so on. I don't know. I just couldn't. I have to admit that I just couldn't. But
No, no,
but it,
and like I said, it's just like a lot of people, including myself. You think you going into French, it's going to be easier than learning like German or any other language. But
yeah,
in reality, I think it's got French itself has got some sounds that are not easy, especially for Spanish speakers, right? But it's all practice, though. Like you bring it up, it's
yeah,
of course pronunciation. It's just like mimicking sounds, but also working out the right muscles, and practice, lots of practice. If you don't practice, you can never like imitate the
yeah, for
correct sound
sure.
or the same one, right? But even if you don't make the right sound, if people understand you, I think that's all that matters, right? Of course, having good pronunciation or being understood by a big majority of the other people or speakers from that language, it feels good. But as long as you can get your message across, I think that's what matters the most, and that's what is got to do with confidence mainly, right? So pronunciation, as you probably see once we keep on talking about this, is mainly confidence, right? 70% is how confident you are, and then
Okay.
30% is performance. If you are confident enough, even if people are not understanding you, you're going to keep on going. You're not going to have that block in your mind, and you're not going to be mumbling or being shy if you just keep on going, because confidence is the main thing for public speaking, especially in
Yeah.
this case in a second language.
Okay, excellent. Now that you have mentioned pronunciation, uh, well, as I have mentioned at the beginning, you are a researcher, and I think that most of your work has to do with pronunciation, has to do with phonology and with phonetics. So
Mhm.
I think that some of your work has to do with the lingual musculature. All right.
Yes, that's
So
correct.
what can you say about it? What is your that research about?
Okay, so pretty much like I mentioned, that is saying that every sound that you make, right, with your body for any human language, right, is going to require you to use your muscles from the stomach all
Mhm.
the way up, right, to your mouth, the auricularies, and the lips. So basically, that theory behind it, it's like if you exercise enough, if you build up, like, let's put it in simple ways, right, if you have a six pack in your muscles for speaking, right, then the chances of you mimicking a foreign language, right, are even higher though. So if you practice a lot of exercising like tongue twisters or even kind of like warm up exercises that people who are into acting do, like pop up,
Okay.
those rituals they do before they go on the stage, they're going to help you out because basically what you do is you're warming up your machine, right? And our
Okay.
bodies are machines, and all we're doing is producing sounds based on those muscles. And for example, just to make a simple sound like P, right? You take about 171 muscles just to be able to produce that P sound, right? Not even PI, like P. So if
Okay.
you work out, pretty much is like the fitness of the lingual musculature, which is like, the way we pronounce and we come up with sounds using our bodies. If you keep it trained or it's healthy and also fit, then your chances of mimicking a sound in a second language are going to be higher. That's pretty much what all that research goes down into.
All right. And have you applied it to your classes, to your students? What results have you got? I mean,
Okay.
because most of the times, well, the thing that you were saying that our body can produce sounds. It reminds me when I was taking singing lessons. So I
Mhm.
don't know, somehow I related it to it because
That's
when you
correct.
sing, of course you I mean you have to feel the voice and the sounds in different parts of your body, your nose, your mouth, even
Mhm.
your lungs, your stomach. All right. So it is kind of hard. I mean, of course, I am conscious that I am learning to sing. And sometimes I am shy, to be honest, to produce some sounds. So now, if we move that scenario to the English lessons or to
Mhm.
learning a new language, what results have you gotten from your students?
Okay, so pretty much the most of the stuff I worked on or the research I did while I was at UCF in Orlando, right, required people being recorded and also having them do exercises, kind of like a routine, like going to the
Okay.
natural gym, right? Signing up for a gym, of course, it was free, and also coming up with some devices. I have some devices that I've created that help you out with your pronunciation, and it's based on the sound or the target sound that you want to practice, right? For example, if you speak Spanish, Mexican Spanish, or Latin American Spanish, and you don't have the th sound like the, right? It's a device that helps you produce that, and it's pretty much is helping you work out. It's literally like you go to the gym and you turn on the treadmill, right, for 30 minutes, and all you do is run to exercise to build muscle, right? So whenever you go and run the actual marathon or you run for like 10 kilometers, right, you got the stamina and also the muscles that are required to run are ready. So this is exactly the same idea behind it. Now, also, when I started doing this, that was before AI or ChatGPT or any of the new devices or
Okay.
tools that we
Yes.
got, right? So basically, what I did, which was a lot of work, was record the students before, right, pre-test and test and post-test, and recorded them beforehand and then afterhand, and analyze it using spectrogram, right? Pratt, which is an old device, I don't even know if they still use it. It was
Yeah.
able to give you a spectrogram based on the formats, and just with science, right? I could also tell the students if they were improving or not just based on my perception and their own perception, right? But recording themselves and having recordings of them before they started and after they started the project, right, was pretty much how we measure that. And the students themselves were the ones that actually decided. We always, of course, gave them feedback and rated how well we thought they did or how much they improved. But they actually were the last person to say, "Oh yeah, oh my God, I've improved so much," right? And that's because, of course, based on research again, the best judge for your own pronunciation is yourself, right? Because you hear your own, and the frequency that it's in your ear and like bouncing back in your skull, that it's different than the perception that we have of your voice once you're talking, right? Because the way I sound, I think I sound, is not the same way I sound. When I hit recording, and even when I listen to this audio later on,
Yeah.
I will be like, oh my God, that is not my voice. And that's why a lot of people freak out when it comes to recording their voices, because they don't sound the way they think they sound because of the echo in the skull. So that is, for me, that was the main thing we did with the students, recording themselves, and they rated their own progress. But of course, based on the spectrograms and the frequencies and the numbers, right, the formats,
Yeah.
using mathematical science, we could actually tell whether or not they were making the right sound, which is what ChatGPT and all the AI nows do for free, which is amazing, because now you needed someone with training to help you with that. And now anybody can just go and be a ChatGPT, for example. I want you to help me to practice my pronunciation of the letter th, or the phoneme th, right? And after that, I'm going to record myself, and I want you to analyze it using a spectrogram or like frequencies. And everything I did by hand, right,
Yeah.
individually, now can be done in seconds, which is amazing, though. So that's something I'm using now. I'm relying on AI now instead of doing it on my own. It's saving me a lot of time.
Yeah, I guess that is one of the most objective things about AI. I mean, to know how to use it properly, because
Hmm.
you just mentioned it. You just have, or you just have gotten more free time. So
Yes,
that
of
is
course.
incredible. But well, what is your perspective? I mean, is technology helping or hurting language learning right now? Because I mean, I can. Um, I can say it from my experience. So I have seen that many students, at least here in Mexico, I know that you have been abroad,
Hmm.
and you have worked with many students from different countries. But at least what I can see here in Mexico is that most students are using AI in order to procrastinate even more, or to be more, or to be lazier. So I
Hmm.
think that is not a good use of artificial intelligence. So for you, in your perspective, I mean, you have many cultures and many students. So what is your perspective? What is your take on the use of technology? Is it helping or hurting learners? Learners?
Okay. I think now, because it's just the beginning, right? It's a big shift. It is not beneficial now because we don't know how to use it. That's, you brought up a great point. But I believe that if we include it in an effective way, it is gonna change it. Like it is already, right, reshaping the way we teach. I can think about, maybe, back in the day when I was doing my bachelor's degree in business administration, and we had to do all the accounting formulas by hand because the teacher was like, no, you have to learn how to do this, right? But at the
Yeah,
same time, Excel was right there, right? And the first step they did was like, they taught us how to do the formulas by hand, which was painful. It was long papers, right? Big pieces of data by hand. And once we actually moved into Excel, it took us like not even 1 minute to do all the calculations, right? So I
yeah,
think AI is exactly the same. It is not beneficial when you use it like that, like you said, right? For example, in grammar, if I give him an exam, and I can do that, right? I
yeah,
can say this is a grammar exam. I give them the multiple choice questions, and they input it into ChatGPT. And within 2, 3 minutes max, whichever time
yeah,
it takes them, to type it up on the computer, they'll get the right answers, right? But they're not learning or picking up anything based on that. But if we train him on how to use it as a special tutor, right, which is what we're
yeah.
moving, I guess, towards now, it's we can think about AI as having a private tutor to our site.
Hmm.
Right? Even for me, like I'm working on advanced stuff for phonology, then I can always rely, and instead of just being me and reading stuff online, reading articles, published journals, or even books, I can rely on AI, of course, always verifying, right, the authenticity of the text, and use it as my private, right, tutor, which is great. And I believe that now, like what you mentioned, just because many of us don't know how to deal with this change because
Yeah,
it's so abrupt, is so sudden, is not being used in the right way. But I think that once we start including it into our lessons and our daily routines and assignments, I think it is going to be beneficial. So yes, at first I don't think it's good, or even for beginners, I should say this is what I think this is going to move
hmm,
forward to. when you're first learning the language, you should learn the basics on your own.
Mhm, mhm.
And then once you reach a maybe A2 level, then you can definitely rely on the help of AI tools, right? But that doesn't mean that you can never use AI, even if you're
Yeah,
A1 level, right? You can use it to your advantage, and like you said, this has to also be a little bit on yourself. If you're an autonomous learner, you're gonna take advantage of that, and if not, you're just gonna look for a way or a shortcut, like you said, to not finish your homework or your assignment. So that depends on each individual, I guess.
yeah, I completely agree with you. And I think it has to do with the thing that we have to re-educate ourselves, maybe, and also, I mean, now that we have this position of being teachers and somehow we inspire our students, we have to educate them, re-educate them as well, you
Yeah.
know, um, because, well, it brings to mind that, as you have mentioned, you have uploaded your exams and so on. But as I have mentioned, I have taken singing lessons. So now it leads me to the following question. Do you think that uh, somehow our jobs are going to be replaced by AI? And let me tell you why I think in this.
Mm-hmm.
Um, well, I remember that once I upload a recording of myself singing to ChatGPT, and I ask it, can you tell me what are the the high tones and the down tones and so on? Can you tell me how in tone is this woman and so on? And actually, ChatGPT will answer with the correct answer. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
and I didn't ask my teacher. Of course, I am planning on going back to my classes because I love it. That is something
Yeah, yeah.
that I love.
Uh-huh.
But I mean, now that you say it, it is like I have the feedback in just a couple of seconds, even.
That's
You know?
correct. So I think, like I said before, right? Of course, let's say, for example, right? I know basic Japanese, right? I know maybe A1. If I want to improve, I can also go and pay for a tutor, right? A teacher, or I can definitely just go into ChatGPT, or there are better ones that I use, like Claude, the European one, which is great. If you never used it, is
Yeah.
even more academic. It's better than ChatGPT, right? You
All
still got
right.
to pay, but the free version is still good. And let's say I want to learn Japanese, and I got two options, right? Like I said, I can use AI, or I can always go and find a tutor or a class. And I think that the main difference is going to be that I should definitely use ChatGPT, right, or any other AI to improve. But if I really want to use it or feel like I am part of the language, right, because learning the language is not just being able to speak it, it's being able to be part of
Yeah.
the culture, right? That's something that we study with social linguistics. That's when we need the human touch. And I think
Yeah.
definitely a lot of people are going to lose their jobs, which is right, because that's what's happening. That's reality, I think.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
But the most qualified are going to still be teaching, and those are the
mm-hmm.
ones who are really going to relate this AI dilemma with humanity. How we can keep our humanity into the lessons that we teach for language learning, and not just for language learning, because this can be for math, this can be for chemistry, right? Uh, I
Yeah.
can I can just feed it any question about any subject. I got here like 100 maybe teachers, different subjects, right, in my school right now, and they if we combine ChatGPT, that thing is gonna be smarter and faster than we are. But if we all right try to develop a lesson that is more humanistic or more ethical, I think that's an authentic. That's when the human touch is going to come into play. So I think definitely is a retraining, re-educating, like you said, ourselves, especially teachers, right?
Yeah.
And lots of changes, including a lot of virtual activities, critical thinking skills, which is of course disappearing. And
Yeah.
I think that's what I believe, right? I can be wrong, but that's what I see this going towards in the future.
Yeah, I think that you have mentioned something important that AI is never going to have, and you said this human touch. You
Mhm.
know, no, I mean that is never going to happen.
Yeah, I mean,
Artificial
at
intelligence.
least now we don't have it.
Yeah,
So
exactly. Yeah,
for now, we're safe. I don't know. This thing is moving fast and learning faster than we ever thought you could learn. But I think for now, that's it's safe to state that even when I teach now, and I'm also teaching now, when I
yeah,
see my students, I have a small class, but they're like in high school now, and I can see the difference that it makes if I talk to them and approach them and show them that part of humanity or kindness that we have when we teach, the environment that you create in the classroom,
Yeah.
that report that you build with them, that is something that right now any of the AIs don't have, right? That's
Yeah.
exactly true, I guess. So that's my take on that for now, I think.
Yeah. 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 I completely agree with you. And well, going back to this thing about sounds and production and accent, do you think that accent is really important?
Actually, like I said, there is a lot of different dialects and accents, right? For example, mine can be like Mexican American. I don't sound British, but I think basically, right, what we have to define is if the person who's talking feels comfortable with their dialect or accent, right? In this case, so for example, when I speak in Spanish, I have the Mexican Spanish accent, right? But if I were to move to Spain, maybe I have to adjust it a little bit because people say, oh, he's been in Spain for 1 month and he sounds like he's Spaniard now. It's just
Yeah.
because if you are talking and people are not understanding you, right, you have to adjust some of the sounds that you have. It's the same when Americans move abroad and they go to England, right, or even British people come to other places. They use, of course, or they try to use standard English, right, instead of
Yeah.
their own dialect. So I do believe it's important to be understood by others, right? But the most important thing I believe, right, is that your accent matches your own personality. If you feel
Okay.
authentic when you're talking, right? If you have this thick, right, different accent in a foreign language, but you don't feel comfortable, then you're going to try to improve it, and you're trying to feel shy, like you said, right? But or you're going to feel shy, sorry, when you
Yeah. Yeah.
communicate
Yeah.
with others. But if you're comfortable with your dialect or your skills and your accent, then I think that's all that matters, because that accent is part of your personality, right? And that is who you are. Of course, we have that wrong perception that if you have a thick accent or a second language accent, right, then most likely you're not good at that language, which is, of course, nonsense. And it's been proven that that's not right. It's even wrong, right? Even some people who are not native speakers, they're sometimes much better than native
Yeah.
speakers when it comes to teaching grammar or stuff like that. And you brought up a great point for accent and pronunciation. There are many different Englishes out there. So if we have a guy
Yeah.
from Scotland coming in to the US, and it's happened before, right? When he starts talking, people are going to be like, oh my God, I don't understand what he's saying. And that can be frustrating. He's a native speaker, right? And it will be exactly the same if you got somewhere from Chile going to Mexico and they start talking super fast. Within the
Yeah.
first 5 minutes, you might be completely lost. I still remember one time I was watching a movie right in Chile, and my mom was looking at me like, "What is this? I don't understand anything." And I'm like, "Mom,
Hmm.
this is Spanish." She's like, "No
Yeah.
way." It's been like 5 minutes, right? By the time she asked me that question. So all I'm saying is that part of your identity is your accent, right? What we call dialect. We like calling like that in linguistics. It doesn't matter if you're a second language learner; it's a dialect that you have. And if you are happy and satisfied, and that's part of your personality, and that's authentic to you, that's all that matters. Now, of course, if every time you speak and you mispronounce a word and it's really hard for others to understand you, that's
Yeah.
when you have to practice, because that is creating a problem, right? Or even if you're mispronouncing a word that might be something offensive, right?
Hmm.
Then that's maybe an issue. But other than that, I do believe that pronunciation, it's great because it shows that everyone is different and we have all different dialects and different ethnicities, and it's also
Yeah, for
sometimes
sure.
part of our culture. That's what I think.
For sure. Yeah. Yeah. I completely agree with you. Well, do you agree or disagree with the idea that when you speak another language, you can be a different person?
Uh-huh. Okay, I do agree with the idea, and based on some of the research I've done, like I said, for the project that I worked on, right? We go by different levels, and the last level is finding your persona in a different language, right? Which is
Okay.
the hardest one. When you're learning a foreign language, of course, sometimes you feel frustrated because you can be really outgoing or funny in your native
Mm-hmm.
language, but once you start talking in the new language, right? Because your vocabulary is limited or you don't know, like enough grammar to crack up a joke or something like that, then you might be frustrated. And finding that persona, right? Not even personality. You do have
Yeah.
different personas once you start picking up different languages, right? Then that is one of the hardest parts of it, because you got to find your own persona in that different language, right? And it can be, of course, similar to the one you have in your first language, or it can be completely different. And you'll see this once you, like you said, right? I've traveled, met a lot of people who are polyglots too. They know a lot of
Yeah.
languages, and the way they behave in one language is completely different to the way they behave in another one. And some of them are exactly the same person, right? And this is, of course, based up to your personality, and also I believe in the rules for the language, right? Like in Japanese, everything is more respectful,
Yeah.
and there are certain ones that you can talk to people who are your age, same age, or people who are older than you. So that also has to do a lot with the rules or what it's allowed in the language, right? So even if it's the same language, like Mexican Spanish, we have a lot of we use a lot of cuss words. We have a lot of things that we use, dialects that are used by other dialects now, right? Because of
Hmm.
TikTok and the influence of
Yeah.
media, Mexican media, and Latin America. So that's something that I do agree with. People have different personalities or personas in very different languages.
Yeah, and I can test it myself because to be honest, I am chattier in English than I am in Spanish.
Oh, okay.
I don't
See,
know why. Yeah, in Spanish it is like, oh yes, yeah, you're right. But in English it is like I debate, I give my opinions and my ideas and so on, and it is like I don't know why, but I just feel more comfortable speaking English. Sometimes, as you have mentioned, one of the limitations that I got is that some vocabulary. For example, I want to
hmm
express my ideas, and it is like, oh my god, I don't know how to say that. Anyways, I try to do it. So I don't know. It might be that what motivates me.
hmm
Um, is that I am going to learn my vocabulary, and no matter if I don't know how to say the proper word at that specific time, I am going to research it later, and I am going to learn. I think that is my
hmm
the reason that I am like a more like chattier in English.
Yeah,
I,
you're
I
right.
believe that.
It might be your brain like challenging itself, saying like, I don't know this word, but I'm still going to be able to communicate and, send my message across because I'm talking now and this is what I want to do. And yeah, I mean, but yeah, you're right. I do agree with you. Yeah.
Okay, so well, we are coming to the end of this interview.
Okay.
So, as I have mentioned at the beginning, you have been all over the world, I guess. So, which cultural experience has impacted you the most as an educator?
Okay, there is many, but I'll probably say the very first one, which was my first full-time job when I moved to Turkey, to Istanbul.
Okay. Yes.
Because I didn't know anything about it, and to be honest, I was just broke. I had been traveling. I was just fresh out of college. I had been traveling in Europe for about 3 months and backpacking, and of course, I wanted to teach, right? And I was done with it, and I was like, you know what? I'll see what's out there, and I applied to many jobs. And to be honest, I was like, Turkey, it's nearby. I can afford my ticket. Let's go, right? And
Okay.
once I landed, I didn't even know they spoke a different language, which is right. Sometimes people are dumb. I was really dumb. I thought they spoke Arabic, and I was surprised. So as soon as I landed, I was like, "Oh my God, this is amazing!" The culture was great. So it was a different shock. It was surprisingly good. It was like, "Oh my God,
Okay.
this place is amazing." And funny fact, like Turkish is one of my favorite languages, and I kept on learning it, and I kept on actually studying it because it was so beautiful. So it was a big surprise that sometimes, right, we don't know enough information about the culture or the language itself,
Yeah.
and we make, yeah, bad judgments about people and their own culture. So for me, that was my first time traveling full time, different rules, different culture, and completely different language, right? I didn't even know how to say hello or anything like that.
Yeah.
And now, if you even ask me, I remember more Turkish than Chinese Mandarin, which is like, the last language I tried to learn when I lived
Yeah.
in Taiwan. So that was the most shocking thing for me, finding a new culture and a new language that I didn't even know existed.
Okay, thank you for sharing your experience. And well, before we go,
hmm
I have this set of snack questions. All right.
Okay.
So please, you just answer with one word or
Okay.
a short phrase. All right. So
Perfect.
the hardest language you've ever tried to learn.
Mandarin.
Okay, a word in any language that you just Love the sound of?
Sarhoş,
What does that mean?
drunk in Turkish.
All right. Okay. Grammar or pronunciation?
Pronunciation.
All right. A country that completely changed the way you see education?
Taiwan.
All right. And well, finally, finish the sentence. Learning a language is really about.
Yourself.
Okay, excellent. Thank you, Ray, for accepting this invitation, for sharing your knowledge. And well, I would like to do something different in this episode. Most of the times, I just say goodbye to our
Okay.
community, but well, now I would like you to say goodbye and to invite to our community to listen to this episode in two languages, the ones
Oh,
that you choose.
okay. So you want English or a different language? Like one Turkish, I can do Turkish. Yeah.
Yeah, please go
Okay.
ahead.
Teşekkürler ederim kardeşler. Gel. Oluyoruz. Record. What is the name? Zakabo.
Snackable. Yeah.
Nakabo. Şuradasa. Link. Esmeralda. Sendiyorum. And then the next one will probably be easier, Portuguese, right?
All right.
Obrigado, bem-vindos. Nós estamos esperando na acabou a liga para escutar a entrevista com Esmeralda. Basta ficar no nosso website. Muito obrigado. Adeus.
All right, that was amazing. Thank you so much. So, guys, he had said it, so listen to Snackable. Thank you so much, Ray.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. See ya. Görüşürüz.
See
Adios.
you.